The Emerging Practice Lecture Series is a collaboration between Island City Lab and the Caribbean Architecture Students Association that really highlights recent Caribbean architectural practices with distinct methodologies. These practices produce accomplished bodies of work rooted in a praxis of designing in a Caribbean context. But beyond the body of work, the series looks at the experience of spatial practice in the Caribbean and all that means culturally, materially, economically, and politically. It looks at the role of the architect in the production of space in the Caribbean and how we can start to reimagine that. My name is Jordan Channel. I'm the program director at Island City Lab. We're a think tank that aims to democratize the processes that initiate, build, inform, and maintain towns and cities across the Caribbean. Just a disclaimer, we do not speak Creole or French, so we ask for a lot of grace as we attempt pronunciations for the rest of this.
Good day, everyone. I'm Tajra Lynch, and I'll be introducing Isabelle Jolicoeur, our keynote speaker today. She's a dynamic architect, educator, and activist, weaving her experience between the vibrant landscapes of Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and Montreal, Canada. With a distinguished background holding both a bachelor's in architecture and a master's in architecture from the University of Montreal, she brings a wealth of knowledge to her roles. Isabelle's passions extend to teaching undergraduate design studios at the University of Quisqueya and fostering resilience in architecture at Herbater. As the founder of Aetypik, she seeks to facilitate Haitian creativity, offering a platform for innovation. And with a dual registration as an architect in Haiti and Quebec, Isabelle's professional journey spans award-winning practices in Montreal to co-founding Ateliers Co-Lab in her homeland. Recently, her advocacy for architecture has found expression in publications such as Alaso, contributing to the feminist discourse and broader societal dialogue. Welcome, Isabelle, and we look forward to hearing from you. I now hand over to Isabelle.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. I'm waiting for the screen share. Can everyone hear me fine? Okay. Is the sound okay?
Yes, you're good to go.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you also for the acknowledgement. Right now, as it was pointed out, Haiti is still going through some crisis. So I'm speaking today with kind of a heavy heart as well. It's not just a normal day, even though I'm not currently in Haiti, but we're all concerned. So thank you for that acknowledgement. I think it's important. I will try to maybe address that in the presentation as well. So hello everyone. I'm very happy to be with you today in this Emerging Practice lecture series. First of all, I would like to thank Doreen and Jordan for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to share what we're doing or practice and like give you a little bit of peek into how we work as an architect in Haiti. So a little bit about me and also Christine. I'm the one on the right, as you can see. I'm a Haitian architect. I hold a bachelor's and also a master's degree from the University of Montreal. And on the left, it's my partner and best friend, Christine Larac. And together we created Atelier Co-Lab, which is an architecture firm that is based in Haiti since 2017. Next. So even though we're both born and raised in Haiti, we both left Haiti to go study. So I went to study to Montreal, and Christine went to study to Santiago in the Dominican Republic. We had lots of points in common, like we were both from the same age. We lived through about the same events in Haiti. In 2004, there was also a crisis. We lived through a dictatorship. So we kind of knew the same troubled landscape, and The other common point that we had was, of course, architecture. And we met around 2016. A friend introduced us, and we started toying with the idea of opening our own firm. Next. At that time, we were both on track for different career paths. So Christine, after she finished university in the DR, being a true entrepreneur that she is, she opened up her first business, which was Inventive House, which was a co-working space that was designed for students from her old university where they could come work, learn, and be inspired by other creative minds, but also where students and teachers from alma mater were trained in software. So she was actually training students to learn Photoshop and design and other types of softwares in rendering. On my part, at that time, I was finishing up my thesis project for my master's degree at the University of Montreal, where I actually lived 10 years. And the thesis that is shown on the right is actually an art museum located in Jacmel, a city south of Haiti. Next. So this is Christine on the left in a natural habitat. She likes to be on site, she likes to be on her feet and out and about. On the right is her car. She was loading up some materials for a project. So she left DR at some point and she came back from to Haiti kind of unexpectedly after a family emergency. And so she started doing a couple of projects here and there. And at that point, I think we had just met and I was visiting her on one of her projects. And she was trying to convince me to come back. I was still in Montreal. Next. So in Montreal, for my part, I had started to work starting in 2010. I had the opportunity to work in a few well-known small-scale architecture firms. I also had made the decision between my bachelor's and my master's to stop studying. I stopped studying for 3 years. At first, I said that it would last 1 year, but it lasted 3 years. I was too happy to make money and to actually practice architecture because I felt like in the bachelor's it was very how do you say it was theory. It wasn't practical. So I needed to see for myself how do you actually build a building from the design and then build from the ground up. So this is me in my elements. So I am more comfortable inside in an office. Because this is me with a few colleagues from my first job in Quebec, Montreal, Canada. So I'm most comfortable preferably behind the desk, organizing and planning. Next. Together, Christine and I had previously collaborated on projects with Aetypik. So what is Aetypik? Aetypik is a platform that acts both as a virtual showcase for Haitian creativity, but also as an incubator of formative and inspiring initiatives. So we do conferences, workshops, seminars, and all sorts of activities that mix both professionals from the architectural world and the urban world, if you will, and the general public. So that way we can try and promote architecture. So at that point, we share the same values and the same passion to share all things architecture. However, I still had a few things to resolve back in Canada. I had to obtain my architecture license, which meant in Quebec, it means passing 4 different exams in the fall of 2017. Next. This was also around the same time that we were invited to the 2017 Caribbean Biennale that was held that time in Martinique. The theme that year was natural risks and resiliency. And I was invited to speak. We were really surprised about it because Atelier Co-Lab was not born yet. It was about to be. And people were inviting us to speak for our experience as architects in Haiti, but we had barely started. So we didn't know what we wanted to talk about. So we chose to talk about the social implications and role of the architect in our society. This was a way for us to think about what we were already doing with Aetypik and how we wanted to position ourselves in the future as new architects in Haiti. So it was the beginning of a never-ending thought process on why we're doing what we're doing and how we architect specifically in the Caribbean context. Next. But what really initiated the start of the firm was actually a call for tenders, a architecture competition. Actually the biggest architecture competition to date in Haiti, which was the one for the reconstruction of the National Palace that had fallen during the major earthquake in 2010. So it was an international competition where local architects were encouraged to partner with international architects in order to form a team. So um, I went ahead and wrote an email to Mass Design Group, which was already working in Haiti and um, is an award-winning firm, and we already greatly admired their work. Next. And very much to our surprise, we got an answer and started to put together a team. They actually said yes. And we started to put together a team of us, Atelier Co-Lab, Mass Design Group, Macazan Partners, which is a British firm who was responsible for the renovation of a major project in Haiti, Le Marché en Fer, which is an important heritage iron market in the capital. And Parasysmic and right now Dean at the Rice University, Dr. Desroches, and a well-established and respected Haitian engineering firm that is called Construction Études SA. So at that point, I was still in Canada. We were drafting the papers to form our architecture firm. I was studying to get my license. We just had made the presentation to Martinique, so everything was happening at once, but this is what initiated actually the start of the firm. It was just wanting to participate in that architecture competition. But spoiler alert, we were not chosen. Even though it felt like a huge loss, it was just the beginning of an exciting adventure. Next. After not being chosen, we just decided to, I came back to Haiti, obviously. I came back in December 2017. And we started to organize the office. So our first office was a basement storage in Christine's parents' building that we rented out to them for a cheap price. So this is the part where usually people say that they did everything themselves and the self-made story, but I also want to emphasize that we were helped by a lot of people and supported by a lot of people that believed in us. So we're also aware of that privilege and that we had through the process. And also the privilege of having contacts, which is also very important in Haiti, well, everywhere, but specifically in Haiti. Next. So this is one of the first few projects that we had starting out. This is the renovation of a pavilion at the foot of one of the most impressive, in my opinion, gingerbread houses in Haiti. You can see on the left, this is what we call gingerbread houses in Haiti. It's a mix of Victorian architecture adapted to the climate with high ceilings, lots of openings, and so on. This is very distinctive of traditional Haitian architecture from that period. There are other typologies. Sometimes people only think that there's only that typology. But so we were invited to renovate the pavilion that's at the foot of that gingerbread house. And that was designed by Albert Mangonès, which was a renowned Haitian architect at the time. So it's actually a salle d'eau. It's basically a place where women changed out of their clothing to go to the pool, the Aegean set pool. It served as a bathroom as well. So later in its history, it will house the fucking jazz notes of rehearsals of a very famous music group in Haiti. It was not in good shape, but it was interesting to see how history and creativity intermingled in that very specific space, which despite its dilapidation retains its charm, and it's like underneath the shade of century-old trees, which is very special. So at first the client wanted to renovate the whole pavilion and rebuild it as it was conceived, by adding slight modification, so that she could rent it out, like for a short-term rental, for example, like Airbnb, or use during evenings by the pool. Next. She, however, changed her mind and asked us to create a second pavilion that would be adjacent to the space, a parent building, if you will, that would be facing the existing and would be linked to it by a space outside. Next. So what was interesting was that for that new pavilion, it was not about just renovating as is, but we had carte blanche. We could do anything we wanted. So therefore, it was necessary to combine those two volumes. One was an authentic object imbued with history and heritage, and then the other one we wanted really it to be contemporary, but actually sensitive to the sense of space and having a dialogue with its old neighbor, if you will. So the new pavilion, through its shapes, evokes the morphology of the existing and initiates a dialogue between the two. Next. Its envelope deploys from the ground, becoming in turn ground and roof, and this allows opening to the site for a better integration with nature and the environment. So it's actually a very open structure because all around it's trees and vegetation, and it's really hot in Haiti. So we didn't put too many walls so that it could maintain that openness. Next. So we actually wanted to have, for it to be difficult to perceive the difference between interior and exterior with the partitions that would delimitate different spaces while using the same authentic material of the old pavilion, which was the wood, that would compose a contemporary language of rhythm of the wooden slats. Um, Unfortunately, that project also never got finished. It started, but it's kind of in a pause right now. But it's one of the projects that we really liked, and I think that was true to what we were trying to accomplish. Next. And so this is also an image at the start of the practice. We were working in a very small office, which is like more or less 10 square meters. At that time, I just wanted to point out that the tools we use for the work that we do, at that time, Christine was trying to convince me to leave AutoCAD, which you can see on the left, and go into the BIM world, which you can see on the right. The BIM world is actually a world where 2D and 3D collide. You work on 2D and 3D at the same time, and you can accumulate data to work more efficiently. So it took me a while, but I'm happy to say that now we're 100% BIM led since 2020. Next. And also, for me, this speaks also to the importance of choosing wisely who you partner with. It's not only about the project that you get, the tools that you use, but also who is around you. Kristen is really more tech savvy than I am. In addition to being more innovative, she's also the people person in the duet. She has an ease to speak with clients, to network and making new contacts whereas I am more the more pragmatic partner, the one that puts together protocols, lists, and is very disciplined and likes to have processes. But also the legal aspect of the practice, something that maybe is not really taught in school for all the students that are listening in. So that I had learned from my previous experiences in Montreal, having worked on legal papers and drafting contracts and so on. That was really important also and relevant to put together the office in itself. So our strengths and weaknesses complement themselves, and together we're more apt to tackle the challenges that are ahead of us like that. Next. So at this point, projects were starting to coming in. We started to see the fruits from our labor. We graduated from the first basement office to a second basement office, which was adjacent to the same space, but we could actually renovate it and create it to our taste and organize it as we saw fit. Next. it was really important for us to have that space to ourselves to design it as we see fit, because it was to be the representation of us as an architecture firm, small but mighty, minimalist but intentional, a blank canvas, if you will, where ideas could emerge freely, where we could bring in clients proudly, where we could bring our dogs. This is Christine's dog that everyone knows about. It's Senza. But also create the office culture that we wanted, which was laid back, serious but laid back. You know, sometimes we would play a game of ping pong. Christine likes to nap on afternoons. You know, not have that family life work balance that we wanted. Even though in the first years we were working a lot. But we both agreed that we always wanted to have fun while working. This was really important to us. Next. This is also another project. This is to say that at the start of our office, we were actually building. So we were both designing and building. So we were handling technicians, going on site, verifying everything. So we were doing two jobs at once, which is very common in Haiti because of the precarity of the discipline. Architects oftentimes have to build themselves because it's more profitable. But I know from working in Montreal that it's not this, it should not be the standard, but this is how we started. We were actually building. This is actually an ephemeral on the left, an ephemeral project that we did that we built in 12 days for the client. Next. So we shared our time between the office and the field. It was really exciting to see the ideas going from a laptop to real life. It was also interesting to navigate a men-dominated construction world and try and assert our authority on everyone that was around us. And people most of the time were older than us. All of this while we're trying to put together the administrative structure of a typical architecture firm. Like I said, knowledge that I taken directly from Montreal, my experience in Montreal. Also finding and convincing clients to actually hire us. Next. But at one point, we kind of did tabula rasa, like we said, tabula rasa, and we asked ourselves if we actually wanted to continue like that. And we asked ourselves what kind of company we wanted to be, what kind of architects we wanted to be, critical thinkers, in sort, what kind of impact we wanted to have. And we quickly realized that we could not be special practitioners like we wanted, like the traditional way that we used to see. And we realized that we had to go beyond the normal cycle of building, which is designing, building, and actually usage. Next. So we started to see what we represented first. We're young, which most of the people in the architecture field are not. Women, it's a very men-dominated industry. We're feminists, we're not hiding it, we're Caribbean, so this becomes very specific, but we also wanted to be activists and engaged, and have an impact on people and the environment around us, not just do projects to do projects. But we also had to come to terms with the field that we chose to evolve in and its precariousness, which led most architects to build like we started to do. I knew how to create space in Montreal with its own rules and limitations and its own climate. Christine knew how to create space in Santiago, which is its own set of specificities, right? But we had to think together what it would mean for us together to create in Haiti. Next. So first, at that time, we decided, I don't remember which year, I think it's 2019 or 18, we decided not to build anymore. We stopped. We took that bet that we could only design and only survive by designing. And we had to convince people to hire us only for the designing, which is not very common in Haiti. So especially architecture being seen as something that's very elitist and something that's not for everyone. And for a country that is rocked with political and social instability like Haiti, where it's considered as a luxury. This is a project that we did, which is a bank. They had been affected by the riots that we experienced in 2018, and one of their branches were entirely demolished. So we had to come in and offer a new proposal. And the intention was to offer an open, transparent, and welcoming space to the clientele who had been waiting for nearly a year without the bank. The space is therefore intentionally open and completely transparent with alternately wooden partitions that you can see, but also glass partitions to delimited the offices. Next. We also realized that other than designing, we had to use our platforms to advocate for things that matter to us. So to talk more about architecture. And that meant to be in spaces where people normally don't speak about architecture. And that's why we started to become advocates and speak in radios and do interviews, do podcasts to really start to make architecture something that's approachable and that anyone can talk about. Next. The other thing that we like to do is to share our process. So use our platforms. Nowadays, it's social media, it's Instagram, it's Facebook. Not yet on TikTok. Maybe we're getting too old. But it was important for us to communicate what we did, and we realized that when we had new clients, first of all, a lot of people didn't understand what an architect's role is traditionally, and 50% of the job was actually convincing them of the importance of hiring an architect. So we realized that communication was actually key. Next. And in terms of engagement, it was important for us individually to also use our voices. And Christine has also always been known to use her own voice. She uses her own platform to voice opinions, advocate for things that are important to her as well. This is a screenshot for a video that she did back in 2019 after a series of events that led the capital of Haiti, Port-au-Prince, to be on lockdown for weeks. And that involved a lot of violence in the streets. And this is also part a lot of our discussions as business partners, but also as friends that truly love our country. What can we do as architects, as citizens? Do architects have to speak up? To what extent? Can an architect change a mentality, a country? Is it too far-fetched to think those thoughts? Next. On my part, the use of my voice led me to write most of the time. I always loved to write. So I took that love and tried to mix it with architecture. I wrote multiple articles, one of which was the lack of involvement of Haitian architects into the reconstruction process after the 2010 earthquake. In the article, I tried to highlight that most of the new built buildings were created by foreigners while dismissing local architects. And this article echoed the sentiment of a lot of Haitian architects and allowed me to realize that we cannot speak of space making without talking about power and the influence of external forces also. We cannot teach space making without talking about Western meddling and imperialism. What's actually happening right now in Haiti can seem like it's separated, but there's a link to be made with architecture and space making and the use of space to either repress or creates a space for exchanges and beautiful spaces for people to live and thrive in. So it's important not to separate it and try to understand that space is also political and architecture is also political, which is something that we're constantly thinking about. Next. So Aetypik actually exists before Atelier Co-Lab. The idea started when I was doing my thesis in University of Montreal, and I was researching projects, references. I couldn't find any, and after the earthquake of 2010, it was crazy how many projects were tested and were actually made in Haiti, but you can find information on it. So it started as like an archive of projects, and then it evolved into something more when I came back to, even before I came back to Haiti. Christine started the events before I came back. So it evolved into an incubator that creates events so that people can come and exchange and talk about architecture, but also a way to advocate for architecture and include it into a general discourse and make it more approachable. Next. So this was the day of the most attended event. It was actually an event we were gonna organize for the finalists of the architecture competition that we lost in 2017, the National Palace competition. We had been invited with other select few important people to view the final projects, and we were thinking it's crazy that no one thought for such a symbolic project and building in Haiti, the most symbolic, if you want to say, no one thought of doing a public presentation of the projects. And so I think we saw the private select presentation on a Monday, and we actually organized that event on a Thursday. We had a few days to convince people to come in. At first, no one wanted to be part of it. Everyone was scared to show their project, which to me, with my Montreal mentality, it's not understandable, because architecture competition should be a tool. It should be shared. It should be public. It's not something to be hidden from the public. So we had to convince the finalists to be part of it. We had to convince a bunch of people. We made it. I think only one team didn't attend. Um, and then the goal was for those finalists to come and present their project to everyone that could be there. It was a free event. We never charged for any of our events, because the actual goal is to make it approachable. Next. And actually, this was the event, and I think the attendance showed us that we really must introduce the subject of space making and architecture more in the public discourse, outside of our sacred universities, the sacred spaces of thought, and it that looks so detached from the reality and from the actual people. And include the public more into these conversations, because after all, these places are made for the people. And so for us, Aetypik is another way to be advocates of architecture outside of a traditional space making practice. Next. So like I said, even before I came back to Haiti, we organized events. This is a visit of a newly renovated gingerbread house. Next. We also organized multi-generational workshops that would intersect different fields. We had people from finance, ecology, architecture coming in and thinking about the usage of sidewalks in the community. Next. And our biggest reward was bringing people together and making their work visible for more people. This is the visit of a construction renovation of also a gingerbread house. Next. And somehow bridge the space between the geographical limits of our country. So we started collaboration next with the AA Visiting School, which was focusing on bamboo use in Haiti. Next. And most importantly, what was important for us is to engage with the architecture community as well. This is Coup de Crayon, which is an association of young architects and engineers in Haiti. This is some of the members, not all of them. Next. And on my part, after a few years of practicing, I realized that the most impact that you could have are not buildings, it's people. And Christine had her way of doing it. And we actually, every year we sat down, and we still do. We had our meeting, or yearly meeting, yesterday. We sit down and we decide what we're gonna do, each of us, not only for Atelier Co-Lab, but for different initiatives we're in. And that year we had decided that I would teach. And this is me. You can see me. I look like one of the students, but this is me in green. And that year I was teaching, and these are my students from 2019, I want to say. Next. And Christine, on her part, decided to be part of the CNIH. The CNIH is the only organization that governs professionals authorized to practice construction and architecture on the national territory since 1974. So it's the one and only entity bringing together professionals who have the legal authorization to practice in the various branches of engineering and architecture in Haiti by law. So actually, if you want to practice architecture, you should be in the CNIH. So this was a way to be engaged and advocated. She would go on to be Secretary General for 2 terms, and then implement a brand new website for the organization, and take part in multiple initiatives for the organization. Next. So this was really a way for us to meet new people from different generations, to create contacts, and to understand how the architectural world function also in Haiti. What bothered us a lot at the beginning is, as true millennials, not understanding why something doesn't work. So you come back into your country and like, okay, why is it like that? Can we do more? And try to kind of disrupt the status quo. And sometimes, and a lot of times, we're met with like faces like, why are you asking this? It always has been like that. So for us, it was important to ask a lot of questions next, but also to make our students ask a lot of questions. I always say to my students, there's no right or wrong answer, right? You should just ask the questions. And that importance also to unlearn before learning, because we have so many biases and so many prejudices and so many things that we already learned since we are children, that is very important to unlearn as well. So for me, like I said, we realized that buildings are going to be built, we're going to have projects, but the way to have the most impact is really through people and investing in people. Next. So I said young woman, feminist, Caribbean activists engaged. One thing that I did not know would affect the way I'm practicing is becoming a mother. Next. So when I got pregnant, I'm actually pregnant on site on that project in 2021. I didn't know how I could adapt the workaholic type of lifestyle of architecture with actually being a mother. It felt like it would be something that would impede on my career and something that would slow it down. So I had to find a way to see how I would lessen my workload to accommodate a new human being. Even though I had the privilege of being my own boss, sometimes I felt the need to hide the pregnancy as much as possible to my clients. It felt like a weakness. So this is me just trying to see how the balance would happen and not knowing how it would affect the actual practicing part of architecture. And so I gave birth on July 2021. And then I wanted to go back to work as soon as possible. I felt like I was going crazy. But a few weeks later, we received a letter telling us that we were invited to another architecture competition. And so Christine and I, we had an understanding that I would lead on a little bit that project, and she would take care of the rest of the projects in the office. Next. This is the actual site visit of the project. And it was actually 1 month exactly after I gave birth. So this is, I look at it now, I think it's crazy, but I was very set on going back to work and going in strong. And this is an interesting picture because we were the youngest firm invited, and actually I'm surrounded by architects that I admire and that are my parents' age. And I think it's also, it shows also that we had put in the work for the past few years, and that we were finally started to be recognized for our work, and that we could actually be of worth and be invited to a competition of that sort. Next. But there was only one downside. Now I had a mini me asking for my time and energy 24/7. I had to accept the new reality that I was responsible for a new human, and had to arrange my career around her and not the other way around. This was actually me starting the competition. Next. And so we had to compromise. Meetings were held at my house 2 times a week. I organized my day to fit in according to the naps. It was a struggle, but I feel like I have to talk about it. It's not a subject that we talk about often. It's something that's kind of hidden. We pinned posters on my wall, and we did it very like um, a friendly way. And I think that was really interesting, especially since we were all friends. When we put together the team, it was people that we already knew and already worked on. Next. The actual project was the Centre d'Art, or Art Center in English. The Centre d'Art is a cultural institution that was founded in 1940s. It was recognized as a public utility by the Haitian state in 1947, and it has a considerable collection of works, photographs, and archives. It's the epicenter. It's like the center of cultural art life in Haiti. It's a really big institution. So they chose actually another gingerbread house, which is the Maison Larsen, that was sitting on the land of approximately 2,700 square meters. They chose next. They chose that gingerbread house to renovate it. Next. They chose that gingerbread house to renovate it, but they also asked the ones that were part of the competition to make a new building. So like many gingerbread houses from this era, the house is set back from the street and it dominates the street. And it has a fence in front of it, so it's hidden. You cannot see the house from the street. So our main concern for this project was, how do you integrate the function and the needs of an art center, which are based on inclusiveness, equity, and sharing, in a typology that is viewed as very elitist and exclusive. Next. So what we did is, instead of planning the entire program of the center in the back of the property, like it was suggested in the actual brief of the competition, we decided to split it. We would have one part of the program that would be behind the Maison Larsen, and another part that would be in front, in its rightful place in front. Then the actual title of our boards was en avant, which means in front in French. Next. So we shaped the pavilion with the orientation of the street, and we created two superimposed volumes with advances and withdrawals, created in turn at one point to create an overhang to mark the main entrance, and then another point to create an outdoor space on the second floor. And the parking lot is entirely underground, exploiting the difference in levels at the entrance to the land, and also in order to free the entire site for exploration on foot and without any automobile nuisance. Next. In short, the architectural concept adopted for us, echoed the values adopted by the Art Center. It was a pleasant and resilient site, sheltered from external nuisance, but it's also a building that broadcasted the artistic potential of the talents, using several of its surfaces as displays and diffusion surfaces, including its facade, which will become a real emblem of Haitian culture. Next. And so we went all the way to detailing of the facade, and the idea behind this protective surface of the facade was to have an independent structure. It would be independent of the structure of the building and would have several functions. This rési would have act at the same time as a protective surface against bad weather, penetration of the sun, but also any external attack, but also as a surface for art diffusion. So the idea of this crazy, this mesh, was that it was made of metal panels, taking up the appearance of the openings of the doors of gingerbread house shutters that we see often time in the gingerbreads. And each panel would display the name of an artist who left his mark on the panorama of the Haitian artistic scene. On one side, and an image of the work of said artist on the other side. So that mesh would really represent a panorama of artistic expression and be used as a way to not only protect, but also display and diffuse. Next.
Isabelle, we want to give a little time for Q&A.
Yes, we're talking too much. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up.
Okay, great,
my
thank you.
So yes, this is an image showing what the mesh looks like. I'm not gonna say more. And then next. So together, so these are the panels of the architecture competition. And we were very happy with the results. Spoiler alert, we also did not get this project, but we were very happy to have done it, and it was very inspiring. And for me personally, it showed me that I could still be productive and still be inspired as a mother, because I actually did the project while taking care of my child. And the last thing I'm gonna leave you guys with, if you do next, is that oftentimes we talk about architecture as projects, as drawings, as models and everything. And what I want to say is that for us, in reality, the work goes towards the people along us in the journey. You can do next. Towards community, towards the people that define the Haitian experience. So this is what stayed with us the most for the past 6 years, and that I wanted to share with you all. Thank you for listening to me rambling away and not respecting the time. And I look forward to your questions, everyone.
Thank you, Isabelle. I really appreciate the sort of breadth of work that your practice does. And when I say your practice, I mean how you practice generally. And I'm really inspired by this idea of architecture not just being a project, a sort of process-driven architecture. How do you start to advocate for architecture more so than like are in doing the architecture? It's very interesting to see you navigate projects, competitions, teaching, and sort of advocacy all across, all while being a mom, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're going to start the panel discussion now. And I just have a few questions that I think I'm hoping we'll get deeper into your process and how you start to think about architecture. And I guess I'll start by, talking about Atelier Co-Lab. And you and Christine, it's a woman-led practice in this intensely patriarchal industry, right? And you touched on it, but can you talk more about how you guys collaborate within this context and work together to sort of navigate it?
I think it was harder at the beginning. It feels easier now. Maybe we're used to it. But at the beginning, I'm gonna say maybe it was harder. We were more judged for our age, and there was that sense of maybe you're not knowledgeable enough because of your age. But I think both, but maybe we're not able to perceive it as one or the other, but it was mixed. But yeah, a lot of questions, a lot of convincing people, a lot of putting more efforts to be heard in meetings, be heard in on site. It's just. But I also think that because we're two, so we're just not one person. So when the two of us come and we're millennials, I like to say that we're very how do you say that, têtu? When we have an idea, we continue. So sometimes we don't fear saying what we think, um, and we just go on, apply that to meetings, apply that to being on site, and apply that, and it makes things easier. But also, I think it's important to try and understand the field where you're actually working. Listen to your elders. I think maybe we didn't do a lot of that at the beginning. Not accept everything, but listen, and then trying to understand the field within which you're working, and trying to see how you're going to adapt and create your mark in it. But I think it helps that we were two, that we're very stubborn. This is the word I was looking for, stubborn. We're very stubborn, and we would not take no for an answers as millennials. So it made things more easy, the easier as time went by, I would say.
One thing in the presentation that really struck me was this idea of architects being builders as well. I mean, we understand that as like sort of design build, right? But that's really like a niche specialty broadly in the industry. And it's completely separate from, I'd say, in Jamaica, that doesn't happen a lot, I would say. But it seems like it's part of the practice there. But can you talk more about how you're sort of, you made this stance that you're only doing design. Why was that important?
First of all, we were in over our heads. We realized that we were running around on site, calling technicians, yelling, like we were all over the place. And we didn't like it, first of all. And then realized that we were doing two jobs at once. And then we just didn't like it, and we wanted something different. But the fact that we had that typology, if you will, of building as well, is it comes from precarity. It comes from the need of that sort of belief, maybe, that the designing services are not enough to live on, and that you have to do something that concrete. You have to build in order to be able to survive. So we took that bet. It's a huge bet, because when we took it, everyone told us that we couldn't stay alive in that context, and it's hard. Like last year was the hardest, because sometimes it's a long period of time where you have to wait for projects to start or projects on pause, and we're dealing with crisis after crisis in Haiti. So it's not easy. I won't say it's easy, but for us, it didn't allow time for us to think about the project and really design and take our time and think about why we're doing what we're doing. We were just all the time rushing and trying to just put out fires every day. So we just didn't like it at all.
Yeah, I can imagine. That sounds really stressful.
Yes.
But also on that point, kind of, is this idea of, you mentioned it, like foreign money, resources, and consultants sort of coming into Haiti, particularly after the earthquake. Another theme in your presentation was this idea of rebuilding. Of a lot of the projects you were going after were rebuilding projects. And I guess from the earthquake to now, how has like the situation in Haiti impacted how you practice?
That's a loaded question, especially today.
I'm sorry.
I think it's been hard. I think being two also helped because we can bounce back on each other when someone is at a lower capacity, mentally. The mental aspect for us is also important. The other one can step up, but it has affected us. It has made us. It was ironic because my friends back in Montreal were affected by the pandemic, and we're like, oh, we have to stay home, and then we're like, complaining about and us, we were staying home because we couldn't go out. We were working from home and trying to like persevere and like continue drawing and everything, but we're staying home because there were so many issues in the streets and so on. So I think for us, it's just a matter of believing that us actually picking up a pen, picking up a mouse and continue to draw has an importance, has an impact. When you stop believing in that and you go in front of your computer like, why am I doing this? This is where it stops. But if you the mere fact of us being Haitian architects, still being in Haiti, doing projects in Haiti, is motivation as well to continue and be able to pick up that pen, pick up that mouse. It's mostly mouse, to continue. But it has affected us mentally, practically. Also, sometimes like you don't know if you should call clients. Things are so weird. Should I call a client? I can't call the client right now. So yeah, definitely it has affected us.
Yeah, it's such a terrible situation. I can imagine. It feels weird, but on a sort of more practical note about how you practice, I'm really interested in Aetypik and how it works as a non-project based form of architectural practice. I think that's a big reason we started this series, really challenging this practice-based notion of architecture that gets sort of embedded in us through school, through work.
Mm-hmm.
Why was it important to start Aetypik? What were you hoping to solve with it, or what were you trying to challenge with it?
So it's funny because when I talked to Christine about Island City Lab, I'm like, they're doing Aetypik in Jamaica. Like it sounds the same, so it's refreshing to see. But one of the main things I explained why it was created in the beginning because we didn't have references. But one of the main things that we did events that we would have liked to see, that we would have liked to be invited to. Like, oh, it would be cool if we do like one architect comes and speak about this and that. And then after that, maybe it's not an architect, but it's a graphic designer. And after that, maybe it's not, oh, let's do it. And we just did it. And it wasn't complicated to do. It was like you find a space, it got complicated after with everything happening, but it really stemmed with the idea, the things that we would want to see as creatives in front of us, the experiences that we would like to see, and trying to fill that hole like of nothing happening. Like we didn't see a lot of things happening related to architecture, and trying to bridge generations and bridge different publics. You have it's when I started teaching, I found it crazy that the students were on that side and the professionals are on that side. They never speak to each other. There's nothingness in between them. So Aetypik was also a way to bridge them, bridge them to the public, the general public, and create all those connections so that people can be stronger together and create that sense of community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and in many ways we're very similar organizations. I would agree with you. Before we go into sort of audience Q&A, one thing I'm really interested about is this, you know, you've worked in Montreal and now you're working in Haiti, two very different contexts, regionally, even climates, right? Can you talk about like the differences between how you practice in those two spaces, even administratively? You touched on it, but I'm hoping you can like expand on it a bit.
So it's funny because I just did 14 hours training for, you have to do training to keep your license in Canada or in other countries. So I just did my 14 hours. And I was explaining it to Christine. I'm like, so different. It's like in Montreal, it's very, in French, it's normé. It's like it has a lot of norms and regulations. It's so regulated that it feels almost like you're checking, it's a checklist of things to do, The design aspect of it feels lesser. I remember I really liked working in Montreal, but now looking back and doing the training the other day, it feels really regulated and really like you're always trying to protect yourself from a lawsuit. It's that aspect of architecture, but also it's good that it's regulated. We were trying to take that regulations and apply it to Haiti because Haiti lacks regulations. But in Haiti, what I can say is that, of course, we have more freedom to design as we wish because there is less regulations. Um, I would say we have more freedom in terms of design, but the budget are less, and we have to be more creative on how to do something that is functional as well as aesthetically pleasing. So it's more of a challenge, but we don't have that added, I wouldn't say burden, that added workload of regulations and going through steps that I would have to go to if I was practicing in Montreal. You have so many steps to go to until you go to construction that it almost feels like you're just checking a checklist and doing things like it feels like you're repeating the same models and applying them again. But also I want to say that in Montreal, I worked in small projects. I worked in renovations and transformations of houses and condominiums. So it's oftentimes things that repeat themselves, but maybe it's different for other type of projects.
Great. Thank you for this. Thank you also for this wonderful presentation. So the audience has a few questions. I think we only have time for 2 of them. So I'll just ask quickly. Robert from Aki Workshop, who will be the next presenter in Emerging Practice lecture series. He asks, how do you ensure your vision for the project comes to life using the design-only model?
Can you repeat the question?
He asks, how do you ensure that your vision for a project, that it actually comes to life and materializes while using the design-only model, as opposed to the design-build model, which has more control? And
Oh, yeah, I agree. This is an issue that we have. Because not only we have to convince clients for us to design, but we have to convince clients for us to have the supervision services. That allows us to guarantee that the vision is held throughout. We've had projects, I've had projects that the client sent me the pictures after a few months and they didn't or they couldn't give us the supervision, and it was just a catastrophe. I understand the question. So the only way we could do that it's with supervision services. So supervision allows us to be on site regularly, give input, make sure that the vision is respected.
And I'm not sure what their actual name is, but JPF asks, how do you persevere to go forward, especially in the last weeks?
Yes, like I said, it's very hard. Mentally, I think what we do, Christine and I, is that we acknowledge that it's not going well. Sometimes I acknowledge that we need mental breaks, that we cannot perform. Myself, sometimes I have an issue. I cannot fathom continue working while all of this is going on. But like I said, what happens if we stop? If you just stop, it's like one less creative in Haiti. It's, one less person thinking, one less Haitian designing Haiti, one less person thinking positively for Haiti. So I think that's what pushes us forward. It's just we've made it so this far. We survived 2019, 2020. I could count the years. Every year brings its own set of diversity of events. So yeah, we're stubborn, like I said. We try to we decide a vision at the start of the year, and we try to maintain it, and we try to at the end of the year we see if we reach those goals. Weirdly, last year was catastrophic, but we reached two out of the three goals we had. So it's acknowledging, not, I'm not saying we're 100% every day, we're not. It's acknowledging that it's not going well, that we need breaks. Sometimes we take breaks. We have that luxury in being the bosses of ourselves. We can take breaks when we want, and saying, I'm not good, how are you? And then we continue and we persevere when we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're going to wrap up. I really want to thank Isabelle for taking time to speak with us, to join us on our platform and talk about how she practices, how sort of the breadth of possibilities within architecture beyond the sort of practice or project-based framework. I also want to thank the Caribbean Architecture Students Association for helping us to put this together. This is one of our favorite collaborations with the students, and we get to talk about architecture a lot and the different ways that architecture can be. For the next one, we're hosting Robert Thompson from Aki Workshop out of Trinidad. So I hope you all will join us. Again, thank you so much, Isabelle. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
We're going to close out. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.